I hope everyone had a nice little break, got to walk around and see some colleagues. Now it's time to get back to business. And doing the people's business is what our next panel proudly does every day. New Jersey is unique among the states in the nation that we have a state legislature that meets year-round, despite their classification as part-time. Our legislature is quite active, considering thousands of bills in a 2-year legislative cycle that cover every aspect of life in New Jersey, including public education. Since we met here last year, we've had a statewide election for every seat in the state legislature, survived a whirlwind lame duck session, where are my State Street sisters? Reorganized the state legislature for its new session with 37 new members out of the 120-member body. So we have many new faces in Trenton, and we have many new faces on our education committees, and we're very, very fortunate to have many of these esteemed legislators with us here today. I want to get straight to the conversation and give you the opportunity to engage with our lawmakers, so I will keep their intros very brief. You can find the more detailed biographies and lots of other great stuff in the digital folder, so please remember to scan that QR code before you leave. Any of you who have been to past conferences and know me know that you think it's important that I go beyond the official biographies so we can really get to know our state reps. So I've gotten into this little habit of asking their staffers to share fun facts about their bosses with me. And in the past, we've had a lot of fun with it. Once again, this year, the staff did not let me down. Let me begin with our state senator who we have here, Senator Owen Henry, starting his first term in New Jersey, in the New Jersey Senate. As he said to me on his way in, I'm 10 weeks on the job. So we really appreciate him being here today. Prior to joining the legislature, Senator Henry served as a mayor. And a fun fact about Senator Henry is that he is a model train buff and spends many hours showing, buying, and selling model trains. We're really fortunate to have him here with us today. He has a very tight schedule, might need to scoot a little early, so if we see him exit the stage, we'll know why. From the General Assembly, our special guests are all members of the Assembly Education Committee. How lucky are we? Assemblywoman Pam Lampett is the chairman of the Assembly Education Committee. She's represented New Jersey's 6th legislative district since 2006 and has been a constant and tireless advocate for students and educators. A fun fact about Assemblywoman Lampett is that she is a trained chef. And we're told that's how she keeps her adult children close to home by hosting family dinner every Sunday night. Apparently, one keeps their kids close by providing leftovers for the whole week.
That's right. They come with their own Tupperware.
Assemblyman Sterling Stanley has been proudly serving the 18th Legislative District since 2021. He's the vice chair of the Assembly Education Committee. Originally born in India, Assemblyman Stanley emigrated as a child to Brooklyn. And one fun fact about Assemblyman Stanley is that he learned to speak English by watching Sesame Street. Assemblywoman Michelle Matsakoudas was elected to represent the 21st Legislative District in the General Assembly, also in 2021. In addition to serving on the Ed Committee, she's also a member of the Joint Committee on the Public Schools. And a fun fact about Assemblywoman Matsakoudas is, while she lives in and represents a large section of North and Central Jersey, Westfield to the Chathams and out to Peapack and Gladstone, she is actually a Bayonne girl at heart, and she still has lots of family in Hudson County. Where's our Hudson County constituency? Assemblywoman Rosie Baigoli took office on January 9th of this year, a lifelong teacher and school administrator and NJPSA member. Assemblywoman Baigoli now proudly represents the 27th Legislative District. A fun fact about the Assemblywoman is she loves gardening and prides herself on being able to grow just about anything. She always looks forward to her time in the garden.
Yep. 4 more weeks.
Assemblywoman Carmen Teresa Morales is also a dedicated education professional with over 22 years experience in the field. She's currently serving as a director of curriculum and instruction for the Essex County Schools of Technology. Prior to that, she was the principal of her alma mater, Essex County Newark Tech High School. So you can see you're really well represented on the Education Committee this year. A fun fact about Assemblywoman Morales is during her senior year of high school, she ran for Queen of the statewide Puerto Rican Day Parade in Newark. And on the end, saving the best for last, Assemblyman Avi Schnall began representing the 30th District in New Jersey in January of this year. He also has been teaching high school students for the last 12 years and was a director of a summer camp for 9 years. And a fun fact about the Assemblyman is that he is a mean racquetball player. And I'm told, really mean.
Hard to believe, but it's true.
And last but certainly not least, it's my pleasure to turn the podium now over to our moderator, Mr. John Mooney, the founder and executive director of New Jersey Spotlight News and Ultimate Frisbee World Champion. Please join me in welcoming this extraordinary panel. We're so grateful to have you here today. Thank you.
Here we go. Hi, everybody. Speaking of Ultimate Frisbee, anyone from South Orange, Maplewood this year? No, they were last year when this was first divulged about me. For those who don't know, South Orange, Maplewood was the founding location of Ultimate Frisbee some 50 years ago. So there you go. I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you all very much, and the NJPSA for they keep inviting me, so I keep coming. But to see old friends and hopefully make some new ones, it's a real pleasure. I've actually always enjoyed these, and especially lately, as post-COVID, we sort of got in the habit of remote calls and live streaming committee hearings and you know, sort of all the Zoom going on, and sort of lost the habit of getting together and interacting with each other. And I think as a reporter and a journalist, terribly critical, and I'm hoping that lawmakers feel the same. I sort of feel a little worried that transparency and that interaction is getting lost a little bit. And don't get me going on Oprah and the Open Public Records Act. That's a whole nother thing. But I think it is critical to our democracy to have that. And I'm sure that there's some lawmakers who think it's okay that they don't have to deal with a reporter, descending on them after a hearing. But I'm guessing that most lawmakers want their messages out and want that interaction. So, and I'm sure by the very fact they're here today, this group very much so does. And in fact, I think we practically have a quorum of the Assembly Education Committee. So if you guys want to take up some matters, don't mind me. So the way this will basically work is I'll ask a few questions and get the conversation going, but I really do want to open it up for you all to do so as well. And we're going to be going to you fairly quickly, so don't be shy. I'm sure you won't be. This can be a interaction between you all and the lawmakers as much as it is with me. So let's get, and some of the issues will be familiar, and then others I may, throw a twist in. But as a bit of a icebreaker, let's. And we'll start with you, Senator. Lucky you, first at the table. But I'm going to ask each of you to name an education matter that is either before the legislature or you would think should be before the legislature that's important to you. And, fair game on a lot of topics. A couple twists to this. One is you have to do so in under a minute. And I will be timing, so I won't be rude, but I will remind you if you're over your minute. And then if you can, extra bonus points to raise something that hasn't been raised by somebody else. But that not required, because there are some issues that I'm sure are important to more than one of you. So Senator, here you go. Education matter that is important to you.
Sure, that's an easy one. I'm glad you gave me an easy question. Right now, today, it's the school funding formula. So many districts have been punished. So many districts, it's just unstable. As I said, 10 weeks on the job. I can't believe this has gone on for so long, that these districts that have been cut, and this year especially, the cuts are just non-sustainable, and that is the pressing issue in my district, in both ways. Districts that have received more money, they don't know how to spend it, and districts that have continually been cut over the 5 years, totaling up to more than $30 million. I don't know how anyone would run a school system that way. I don't know how I'm a businessman. I couldn't run a business that way. So right now, today, it's the funding of our schools. And I'm thankfully that this is the last year of this S2, and hopefully in the future we have an opportunity to fund our schools in an equitable manner and make sure every child in New Jersey gets an education, and we're not worried about transportation. We're not worried about extracurricular activities. This is not acceptable in 2024 here in the state of New Jersey, who prides itself on having some of the brightest people in the country and the best education system in the country. It's just not, it's not right, and we have to fix it.
You're good. Look at that.
sorry.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you,
Uh,
thank you.
Assemblywoman.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me, and thank you to John for moderating. As I've been doing this now for 18 years and being the chairwoman for the last 6+, there are a lot of issues that are top of my list. So I'm going to play that game, you know, that game that you play with, you know, kids in the car when you want them to be quiet. I'm going to do that add-on. School funding and,
Yep.
right?
Good. Well done. Yep.
School funding and teacher shortage. I have been working on a 12-bill package, and actually the 12-bill package has been growing with increasing the number of bills that actually can help to support finding talented, motivated teachers to be in front of our young people. I've always said that what do our kids really need to be educated? They need a safe building, clean, safe building. They need a motivated teacher in front of them, and they need books, and they need paper, and they need a pencil. And if we could only get back to some of that basics to be able to deliver education in New Jersey, we might be able to find some of this extraneous sort of issues that come upon us, that we put upon you sometimes, I know we do, and really get back to basics. But, you know, there's so many dynamics towards teacher shortage, right? It's motivating the people to go into the teaching profession. We know it was demoralized by many other politicians prior, but it's really encouraging them because they're professionals. You're all professionals. So it's encouraging them to go into the profession, but it's certainly helping to help them fund their education too. It's so much money to go to college. I work at the University of Pennsylvania. I can't tell you, the Board of Trustees just put in another 3.9% increase, over $75,000. So the cost of being able to be educated is just so outrageous in this country. And then when they decide they're going to do it, you know, it is about putting more their hands in their pocket, right? They have to pay tuition when they're student teaching. And they're not being paid while they're doing it. So, and then when we're done with that, when we're done with that, we're going to make them pay to be able to take these exams, and more exams that are duplicative and not necessary. And then when we get them into the schools, we need them to be really well mentored. And we need them to understand, you know, what the community is about. And then when they're in there, we need them to be able to stay. I mean, you know, the holistic nature and the buildup of a family is the dynamic of new and innovative and sustainable and longevity. You know, longevity really helps to continue to elevate. And I look at that actually by my panel here, right? So I'm very pleased about the Education Committee. My Education Committee is very dynamic, bipartisan on many, many issues. And we get things done because we're bipartisan.
We'll get to some of those issues, so thank you.
Sure. Got to play the game, right?
Yes, Assemblyman Stanley. Important to you. You could do the
Good morning.
ditto as well.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. So one of the things that's really been pressing in the last few years is the mental health issues within the school system. Not just the students, but also the educators also. I have been tackling this for the last couple of years since I got into the Assembly with legislation, as well as trying to help not just the students, but also the educators themselves with a number of bills that we're working on. One of the bills that I'm working on right now is mental health aids for students. Yep. And also, we're looking at having more access. I've spoken to a lot of the guidance counselors in my district, and there are some complex issues that they can't actually get involved with or handle on their own. So one of the things, you know, we looked at is having social workers available on a county level or on a district level to students to help the guidance counselors. And also I'm looking at a bill right now that's working on having psychologists available on a county level to be available for all the students, all the districts, because some districts might be small, they might not be able to afford to have one on staff. So on a county level, through the County Board of Ed, speaking to them right now about how we can get this done. There are a lot of other stuff that's happening. And unfortunately, the one thing that we see today,
I want to keep, we will definitely be getting back to mental health. I just want to keep it going because I do want to give an opportunity for others to ask about it as well. Assemblywoman.
Okay, I'm going to play the game.
Yeah.
Okay, we did funding, we did teacher shortage, we did mental health. I would like to see us cut the red tape. And I feel like that is causing so many problems right now. It's keeping teachers from getting into the profession fast enough. It's keeping teachers retained. It is keeping our students, what's happening is teachers have to end up teaching to tests that are duplicative. And what I want to see is us to have more people in the room teaching our students, giving them the quality education that they deserve, and keeping New Jersey one of the best places to learn. Under a minute?
Yeah, well done. Wow. You can bank some of that for later, but thank you. And Assemblywoman.
I don't know that I'm going to play the game because I think as a administrator who's suffering with getting teachers into the classroom, I'm going to go back to teacher shortage. And I'm going to also go back to cutting the red tape. Reciprocity, I think, is one of the issues that I like to focus on among changing some of the teacher certifications. We have some talented individuals coming from out of state who are choosing to come and live in New Jersey. But because the certification requirements are so stringent that they've taught maybe 15 years in another state and they come to New Jersey and have to retake tests, go back to school. Those teachers could have been very talented teachers in our own classroom, but if we cut through those, I'm going to use her word, red tape, that are preventing them from entering our schools and doing a magnificent job for our students and are helping us as administrators get the teachers that we need that are qualified in the classroom, I think is something we should be working towards. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Assemblywoman Morales.
So much has been said already, and I'm sure that as a former principal myself, there's so much that we need to address in education, right? Starting with the funding, of course, the teacher shortage, but when we talk about our students, right, we're talking about mental health issues, but also the amount of assessments that students have to take in a year. We need to review that. We need to take a look at that. As principals and supervisors in this building, you all know the logistical issues that come along with preparing for any type of assessments. You're pulling teachers out of your classroom because they have to be proctors. You're closing down floors because it has to be absolutely quiet so that students can take a test. And these tests, what are they doing for our students? It increases anxiety, stress, not only on the students, but on the teachers and administrators. So that's one of the issues that I'm sure we will work with NJPSA to look at how we can resolve that issue.
Great. And Ms. Semmelman.
What's left to say?
Well, I'm sure.
So I'm
Sure you'll come up with
gonna
something.
play the game because we really have like a whole committee here. So through the chair, the chair started the game, so I'll continue. School funding, teacher shortage, mental health, cutting the red tape, and the list goes on and on. However, what I do believe that no matter what school district you're in, we are all either coming to the cliff, at the cliff, or over the cliff. The term of winners and losers is a myth. We are all going to be losers, whether it's now or whether it's in 2 years. The 2% cap is unsustainable. Everything goes up. This year, the transportation CPI is at 5.6, I believe. Salaries go up, insurances go up, everything goes up, but we're stuck at 2%. So no matter how well you did, I'm sorry to bust your bubble, but in a few years, you're going to be in the same boat that everybody else is. We're all going to be losers unless something drastically, quickly is done regarding this 2% cap. The challenge with that is that we have taxpayers, and the taxpayers are going to revolt. And we're all taxpayers as well. And that's the challenge we have to recognize and realize. But we cannot continue with this 2% cap because all of us are going to be suffering immeasurably if we don't solve it.
Great. Well done. Since we started and ended on the topic of school funding, let me pursue that a little bit. But I want to ask the room, how many, raise your hand if your district is losing state aid next year, or at least under the current proposal? Millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Okay. So know your audience. 7 million. Oh, okay, perfect. So why don't I'll start with our senator. What are you going to do about it?
No, it's a great question. I'm going to lead the charge to restore the funding to last year's levels.
So that was my first question.
Yes, we are talking. I'm on the Senate Education Committee. We are talking to a lot of people who are in favor of convincing the Department of Education to take a break and with the amount of money that the governor has put in to the school budget. He added $900 million, added $900 million to the school to fund the S2 formula, but it's a broken formula, so you can put $1 billion into a broken formula, it's not going to be fairly distributed. So we are trying to convince everyone to get on board and restore the funding to last year's levels. And let's give districts more time, more than 3 weeks, once they get their numbers, to get their budget together. Insanity, borderline insanity that this is allowed to happen. So that's what I'm going to try to do, and I'll do my best. I'm talking to other senators. We'll work with the Assembly to get this year's funding to where it was last year, and then start from scratch and over a 3-year period, not just 1 year at a time. No one can operate in a vacuum of 1 year. No business, no school district. Things change, and they don't change overnight. Slow changes. So, I mean, I saw it at the committee meeting where I won't mention the district, but you saw he was almost ready to cry. A $10 million cut in a not-so-big district. How can anyone budget with losing $10 million? Can't be done. So that's my.
Good answer. Good answer.
We're going to get the money back.
But let me follow up. I do want to follow up with you, but I'll add that I spoke in my attending the state budget address from Governor Murphy. I spoke with Senator Sarlo afterwards. As many of you know, he's the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. And I said, is there going to be another tens of millions to make up for the districts that are losing aid? And his words were, I'm not sure we can afford it this year.
Well, we can afford a $250 million museum in Jersey.
Just said, with that perspective, from an influential voice in the Senate, obviously not your chamber, but speak to the viability of that in these times.
So I think we all know that our revenues are not where they were last year. We don't have the COVID funds as we did last year. So last year, I think, was a real blip. But let me say that, really delving into the numbers, getting into the nitty-gritty, $118 million collectively were the cuts to some of our schools, right? And when you start looking at the funding formula, I believe, many of us believe, that there's $152 million that's been egregiously given to, some of the school districts. So there's $152 million that we can't really account for within the formula, and there's an $118 million deficit. So one town, Runnymede, anybody Runnymede district, 57% cut. There was a millionaire who moved into the district that skewed the numbers. So actually, we're getting that corrected. So one town by one town, we're looking at this and getting this corrected. Some of the other things that need to be done is that, and the senator said this, the timing of when you have to do things. Here you are in April, you have to submit your budget. June 30th, you find out what your actual funding is going to be. But May 15th, you have to tell teachers whether or not they have a job or not. The whole dynamic of the calendar just doesn't work. We put in a piece of legislation that would delay you having to make those sort of decisions until 5 days after the budget has been signed. Now, that's a stopgap, and I understand that's a stopgap. But that creates conversation. What we need is more dialogue and more conversation about, what would you fix? And this is why we're here, because we need to hear from you. how would you approach your budgeting process? What do you want us to fix about the budgeting process? Tell us. We're listening.
Anybody?
Anybody?
Yep, here's, do we have a mic over there? Yeah. If you don't mind identifying yourself and your district, if you don't mind, just.
You get a 2-for-1. So I actually work in Chemung schools as a principal, but I sit on the Lenape Regional High School Board. And my children graduated from there. I graduated from the Lenape region. We are LD7 and LD8. I stand here represented by both. My district lost $500,000. We're a small little district, Chemung, but we lost $500,000. We thought we were going to be losing, I think, $200,000. Over S2, 1.2 was what we were supposed to lose. We've lost over $2 million. That's a lot. The devastating one is the Lenape Regional High School District, where I sit on the board. We were supposed to lose $500,000. We lost $4.7 million. 4.7, without any real explanation as to how we are losing $4.7 million. We need answers. We need relief. That represents people's jobs.
Yep.
And if it has something to do with relative wealth, someone explain it, because we don't see it. You ask one thing that we can do to help fix it for us in where I work as an administrator and as a school board member. We need funding, full funding of our special education students. The special education costs. I see I'm not the only one.
Right.
Our special education costs are off the wall.
Right.
And we're not getting funded for those students. I have a little guy right now in our preschool program. He is deaf and he has autism. His interpreter alone is $88,000 just for the interpreter. Now, he's going to grow up into someone's school, and that's just one example. I'm sure all of my colleagues in this room have the same issue. We've got to grapple with this. We've got to grapple especially with special education costs. And we also need a formula that is transparent. We shouldn't be guessing. We shouldn't be calling from business administrator to figure out how the heck did we lose $4.7 million and we were supposed to lose $500,000.
Right.
That's 14 times what we were supposed to lose according to this magical formula. Something's got to change.
So thank you very much, and I'm very aware of the Lenape School District. It's right next door to to where I am. But let me be clear that the governor says he's funding the formula, but what he is funding, and this is your point, is he funding the equalization aid, right? He's funding the net wealth. He's funding that part of the formula. Special education is something that we've been talking about. We believe that special education should be pulled out of the formula and should be just funded by the state and the federal government alone, because you can't predict whether or not that young person who was not maybe in your district before is coming to you. And you don't know that until your doors open in late August, correct? So that has something to do also with head count. We know that you can make a slight adjustment in September, October in reference to your head count. Many of you are apprehensive about doing it because of the paperwork and the logistics that's involved. But yet, if you have 100 more students, you should be, acquiring the revenue, the budgetary per pupil of that 100 students. But you're so busy and you can't get that paperwork done, and so you let it just sit off to the side. So we're trying to take the red tape out of that and also allowing you to do a readjustment, hopefully in February as well. But again, red tape, right, that we spoke about, special education, that's a hardship in terms of how do you be able to support special education. But that's just one idea, and I know that we don't have a whole lot of time, but you should feel free to be able to send it through Jenny or Deborah or anybody else around here to be able to continue to give us these ideas about what do you think can fix the budget process.
Can I go down the table with a question, and I'll start with you, Assemblyman, since you first raised it. Would you support greater flexibility or loosening of the 2% cap? And I do want to ask each of you, because as you said, voters are not going to be thrilled about that either.
That's right.
So would you?
So I think we all agree that the funding formula needs a lot of fixes. I represent a district that is an anomaly in the country. Some of you may have guessed I come from a town called Lakewood, where we have 66,000 children. 60,000 attend private school, 6,000 attend public school. So no formula ever worked for us or will work for us. However, we do know there's a concept of special education, which we spoke about. Because of our anomaly, we're in a $175 million deficit. So if we were to take away the 2% cap, that means everyone's property tax wouldn't just double or triple, it would quadruple. Because let's just raise the taxes.
I didn't say necessarily eliminate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's my point. My point is that 100% I'm supportive of a flexibility within the cap. But what's the flexibility? Who determines the flexibility? Is it regulated by the state? Is it left to the hands of the local Board of Ed? What is the formula of the flexibility? It needs a lot of conversation, which could, should, and hopefully will happen.
Assemblywoman, I'll come down the row and recognize we have a lot of us here, so
No, very quickly.
Yeah, quick answers.
Very quickly.
Thank you.
So I do understand the potential of that flexibility for loosening the cap for certain districts, right? Not for everyone, just to certain districts that have been impacted by a loss. But also, we have to be aware that we have to safeguard our taxpayers. So that conversation needs to happen. And I think we all understand that the 2% does not work for everyone. But at the same time, I will support it to make sure that those districts who are impacted by the loss can have the flexibility to make those adjustments.
Assemblywoman?
So I believe there are some flexibilities currently within the 2% gap. Certainly, if we have high student enrollment, we can petition to have an increase. There are certain conditions within the 2% gap that allows for districts to have a little bit of flexibility. Those are already existing. I certainly would be flexible when it comes to special education. There is no cap, right? We have to educate all of our special education students that enter through our door and do the best we can for them. To eliminate the 2% gap, I'm not sure that I would want that. I just think that there should be more flexibility standards put into that 2% that from the ones that already exist to make it so that districts can be able to provide a free and appropriate education to all students that come through their door. Now, right now, there are some districts that could never mitigate that with even the flexibility, like losing, I would die if I lost $4.7 million, you know, like I would fall on my seat. But we all know that the day that the funding gets released, at least for me, it's like Christmas, am I gonna get the Grinch or am I gonna get Santa coming through the door? And we all wait for that 12 p.m. time and we're like shaking in our seats to see what's gonna happen. And, you know, the days of winners and losers, I've always said that what works for South Jersey may not necessarily work for for Central Jersey or North Jersey. We're a state that is quite complex in every area that we go to. But at the end of the day, looking to put an additional tax burden on residents that are already hurting because of all the inflation that is happening, I don't know that that's where I would necessarily start to. I would look to just have equitable funding across the state for the needs of our students.
Okay, thank you. Assemblywoman Matsakoudas?
I don't believe that the solution for the state is to pass the buck to municipalities and local taxpayers. My concern is what happens to the base tax levy going forward. That's just one of my concerns about it. I really think that the state needs to step up and to provide every district with the resources they need to give K through 12, what they need, what they deserve, the resources. And also, as far as special needs go, yes, I wholeheartedly agree. We're in total agreement. I'll just really quickly say, this education committee, as Assemblywoman mentioned, it is very bipartisan. There's a lot of things that we agree on, and we all have, in our hearts, we have your best interests. Trust me, I've been on this committee now. This is my second term, and anyway, there is one bill that the Minority Leader DeMaio has, and it would increase state aid to adequacy for every district and stabilizing the funds by focusing on income, and it actually would lower property taxes by an average of about $804 for the first year. So there are some things out there that we can discuss further. Thank you.
Assemblyman Stanley.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a very pressing issue right now for both the Senate and the Assembly. Currently, right now, we're looking to see what we can do to alleviate this. Assemblyman Fryman and Senator Zwicker have introduced legislation where we're looking to alleviate the 2% cap for this year, so that way we can make sure that no teacher gets let go, no cuts happen to programs for students. And this is something that we're working on right now, and hopefully we'll be able to meet in the next month and vote on this. So that way you will have this on time before you have to present your budgets, before any teachers have to be let go. And it's very important to note that, we are working with you. And like the chairwoman said, you also have a say in all this. So go back to your respective districts. Talk to your senators, your legislators, and say, hey, look, this is the issues that are going on. We need to have dialogue, conversation. And I have a very good working relationship within my district with all the different boards. I talk to the superintendents, the teachers, counselors, all levels, just to get a feedback. And I think that's very important that you also go back to your district and do the same. And as far as the funding formula.
Well, but let me stay on the cap. Doesn't sound like you're inclined to much change the cap. I just want to,
Yeah,
on
we're
the
looking
question.
to alleviate the cap, so that way.
You would, okay.
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
yeah.
That's what the bill is looking to do.
Okay.
So that way, they can put whatever needs to be put into the budget to keep the teachers, keep the programs for this year.
Okay.
And then we got to rework the formula.
Okay, let's keep going. Just quickly, the two of you, I have a guess, but because I do want to get to teacher shortage issues, which is
So,
obviously.
you
a
know
big
that
one.
commercial with Staples where they have the easy button and you press it? I feel like the 2% cap is the easy button, and we need the pressure on us not to abdicate our responsibilities. Our responsibilities are really to work hard to try and figure this out. And when you keep the pressure going, then we will work to peel back the onion to try and figure out more and better and solidified, sustainable solutions. It's counterintuitive, right? You want our towns to do better. You want property values to go up. You want our towns to be selective and wanting people to come to our towns. But, once we do that, then we're going to hit you over here, and your property tax bills are just going to get higher and higher. My town, Cherry Hill, $7 million cut. They went out for a $350 million bond. So you know what's going to happen to my taxpayers in Cherry Hill if a 2% cap is voted on. And Cherry Hill, like many of your districts, are dynamic in terms of, sustaining long-term home buyers. The elderly in our homes, we try to keep them in their homes. And this is just going to be a challenge to be able to create the scale that we always try to weigh, what's going to push us further down and what's going to propel us up, but where can we create it where we're level playing and creating a little bit more harmony in terms of the dynamics of our municipalities, our counties, and our schools.
Senator, I'll give you last word on.
Thank you. No, I am not supporting to go above the 2% cap. And I say that if the state had its houses in order, no pun intended, districts would not have to go above the 2% cap. And I think it drives a wedge between the residents and the municipality when you go out and you raise taxes above the 2% cap. As mayor for 12 years, whenever the school district went up to the 2% cap, you know who got the blame for it? The mayor. It was always the mayor's fault. Taxes went up. And I'd say, no, we didn't raise taxes. The municipal tax rate went down. Look at your tax bill. School board went up a full 2%, which is a lot when you get into some of these big budgets. No, you're full of it, Mayor. You raise taxes. So I think it drives a wedge, especially as our population gets older here in New Jersey. We have people living on fixed incomes. And so I think it's just a bad idea to go above the 2% cap. And I will not support any legislation that allows the school district to go above the 2% cap unless they do already have, in some issues, they can go above it. And I still support
Yeah,
that.
with the vote, right, yep.
But now that they took the school budget away from the residents, right, it was always a fear that they would just turn the budget down no matter what it was. So we put that 2% cap in there, and the taxpayers were promised that it would only go up 2%. So I'm not in favor of raising it. I think we can fix it. There's enough money in this state for education to not have districts go above the 2% cap.
I'm going to pose a question to the room. We're going to now talk a little bit about shortages, staff shortages, which impact all kinds of levels. But one of the beauties of doing this panel specifically is Deb Bradley gives me this incredible cheat sheet of issues that are out there. But she listed things: student internships, continued certification waivers, flexible certifications, other initiatives to attract teachers or students into the teaching professions, and then asked, what are the long-term ideas that the legislature should consider? What do you think the long-term ideas should be? We have a mic. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then I'd love to hear the lawmakers react to whether it's something they can address.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Matt. I'm a supervisor of the Hamilton Township School District, and one of the things that I deal with as a challenge all the time is teacher salaries. I understand it's budget constrained and negotiations and a lot of things that go through with it, but at the end of the day, there's a limited amount of money that goes around, and there's a lot of talk about the limited amount of money and how to better fund districts. At the end of the day, if I'm a college student right now, and I don't have this embedded altruism to help the world be a better place, and I'm looking toward my future, I can't afford to be a teacher. It's an impossibility right now to be a teacher, and to say I'm going to go do that, and I can find a place and buy a car and have a cell phone and buy food, and it's an impossibility. So what can we do to fund schools, raise teacher salaries, put a minimum on what teachers can make, something along those lines?
Okay. Others? Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Anthony Scotto, Director of Curriculum and Instruction for Hamilton Township Schools in Mercer County. I understand that there's been some discussion about possibly eliminating virtual learning, and I just want to kind of create a picture for all of you. You're a high school principal or a middle school principal, and you have been trying to hire Spanish teachers since last spring when you found out that your staff were retiring or leaving the district. You've posted 7 times. No one has applied. It is now the 3rd week in August, and the Director of Curriculum says to you, what is your plan B? Your plan B could be to collapse classes. Your plan B could be increase class size. Or your plan B is to look at virtual options, because at the end of the day, if you have 3 middle schools and you want all of your students to have world language instruction, you do what you need. In my situation, I was short 3 world language teachers for 3 middle schools. In one middle school, we have 981 students, which means that there would have been 0 world language instruction for that building. How can I, who oversees the academics of the district, say it's okay that one middle school have Spanish instruction, one have 1 teacher, and a 3rd school have 0? It's unacceptable. And I was concerned when I listened to the testimony a few months ago, maybe about a month or 2 ago, that other members or educators across the state would say that we didn't actively try to post. We did. I was concerned when people were upset that perhaps we worked with outside vendors to provide synchronous instruction for kids. We did. I was concerned when people would think that perhaps once I had secured instruction with a vendor, that I wouldn't continue to look. I did. I have filled 2 of those 3 vacancies, but as of today, I'm still short 1 world language teacher, and it's almost April. But it's my job to make sure that if I am going to move forward with virtual learning, that I recognize the needs of my district, that I secured synchronous instruction. I made sure that they followed our curriculum. I worked with our principals to make sure that there was someone in the building, in the classroom, working with the kids. We're a 1-to-1 district, so we were able to Zoom in live with the instruction. I required them to do back-to-school nights and conferences with our students, just like I would in person. So a bill that would eliminate virtual learning would basically stop instruction, put principals and central office leaders in very uncomfortable situations, and as a K-12 district, possibly hurt the feeder of program for kids to pursue world languages, to go beyond the local requirement, and what we want them to do is to pursue AP. So I ask you to reconsider that if that bill comes up or comes up again, and just think about that picture that I've created for you. Thank you.
That was a twofer, because I was also going to ask about virtual learning. But I want to, Assemblywoman Lampitt, you have a package of bills, that are aimed to address the shortage. Don't run through them all, but what is the most important one? And you've heard, at least from 2 points of view on some of the frustration that is felt out there. How do you address that? And a fundamental question for all of you is, how do we address this in the long term? And not necessarily just Band-Aids, but I'll start with you.
Sure, and I'd be remiss if I did not tell everybody in this room about how well represented you are at the state level by Deb Bradley and Jenny Lamont. They are consummate professionals. They are dynamic. They know your issues, and they have built such great partnerships with some of the other organizations in this room, and they collaborate extremely well. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of their effectiveness. Of the teacher shortage bills, I think it addresses the affordability issue. Most of our teachers go in by having school loans. So 2 of the bills really focus on creating scholarships and funding for teachers if they retain working within the school district of where they went to school. So we want to be able to continue to not have them come out of school already in debt, not be able to afford the cell phone, not be able to afford to live, but by able to lifting them up and showing them that this is an investment that the state of New Jersey truly believes in. We want to invest in you. And I think that sends the best message and the strongest message in terms of teachers' net worth, because it really shows that we value them. In reference to the virtual learning bill is not a bill to do away with virtual learning. It's to create some stronger strength around virtual learning. What we heard in our hearing is that there are some outside vendors that are not following the rules. They have teachers who are not New Jersey certified teachers. I mean, none of us would agree with that. None of us would agree with that. So we're trying to figure out what's going to be the best dynamic. What we have heard is the Italian teacher is the hardest teacher to retain, right? What pushback do we get is that we have people within our leadership that do not believe in allowing outside of New Jersey teachers, licensed teachers, to take, even incremental short-term fixes for places, but we will, okay? We will look at the compact in terms of mental health, and some of the individuals that are working in your schools, 2 things. Some of the individuals that are working in your schools in relationship towards mental health, the therapists, the psychiatrists, the psychologists, all of those individuals, we're creating a compact now so that individuals outside of New Jersey who have the same sort of qualifications can work in New Jersey. But those that are working in your schools can't help the students outside of school. Crazy dynamic, red tape again. And why does this happen? Because it's continuity of care for our kids, and it's cost effectiveness as well. So there's many different things to answer, cost affordability, virtual learning, and the list goes on, and I could talk forever, but there's a lot of really talented people here.
Yeah, those who work in schools, what are the measures that you think are most important?
So for me, it's avenues to teacher certifications. When I started teaching 23 years ago, I didn't have to take all of these basic skills exams, and ATPA, and I didn't have to, and I think I was a very good teacher. I didn't have to take pass every one of the practice exams, that are costly and teachers have to continue to retake. You had a passing score, and that was the score, and you made it, or you took the test again. I was able to teach K to 8, and I took an exam that said I could teach from kindergarten through 8th grade. I'm still one of those that holds those old certifications. Teacher of the handicapped, preschool, students with disabilities. Who wants to get highly qualified in science and then be a special ed teacher only in science? That really closes the doors for what we can do with our students with special needs at the high school level, having that dual certification, and it's costly. It's very costly when you go back to college and you have to take dual credit certification for, those additional endorsements that piggyback. So for me, it's really going back to the basics. And, someone will tell me, well, those requirements are necessary because we want to have the most prepared teachers and we don't want to dumb down education. And I think I was a great teacher. I think I'm a really good superintendent. I didn't have those requirements. And I'll tell you, back when I became a teacher and we all had those certifications, New Jersey was the #1 state, in the country as far as education is concerned. So if we can just open more doors and make it so that teachers don't have to spend so much money in college getting these dual degree programs, and that they don't have to go through all these exams and programs that just limit the amount of teachers that go into our classrooms. For me, I remember when I became a principal, almost 15 years ago, I would get about 200 resumes for an elementary teaching position, and I would look at them, please forgive me, I would say, ooh, they forgot a comma. But I could pick. Today I post for a position and I'm like, oh, look, which one? Ooh, I got 3, if I receive 3 resumes. So we are really, when we're saying we're hurting as administrators trying to hire teachers, we are really hurting. We just need the doors to open for students to want to see a value in being an educator again.
Are there others with questions on specifically shortage?
Part of the benefit of having the mic is that you can use it when you're done. But my name is Heather Moran, and I work at NJPSA. But to that point, and I'm just going to say one quick thing to that, educators that are in the field, my son is a second-year teacher, loves teaching, already talks about what he's going to do next. And that frightens me, and I do think it comes down to financial issues. He is lucky he does not have college loans. He had a parent that paid for all his tests. He has every advantage that is out there, and he still talks about what's next, even though he loves his job and his students, because he worries about his economic issues moving forward. So that has to be part of the conversation.
So what we hear from our teachers is the tiering system, the tier 1 to tier 5. Oh, yeah. Okay, I hit the nail on the head on that one. Yeah, I think that there's something that we can be doing in terms of the tiering system.
Yes.
It's not something that we have discussed. We're going to be discussing it. But I think that we need to be looking at this dynamic because it does not encourage your second-year son student, to staying in the system.
We have a.
Okay.
Sure.
Yep.
Good afternoon. If you got a mic, you can talk.
Sure. Dr. Copeland, Director of HR for Hamilton Township, supervisor, and my director of curriculum over there. Former teacher, elementary principal, middle school principal, high school principal, and board member for 10 years. My question deals with residency, and specifically NJ First, and the residency requirement that New Jersey teachers live in New Jersey. Any thoughts on?
I haven't heard anything on that lately. Do you have?
Leadership. This is leadership. I think that all of us sitting here would allow for some form of non-residency, in terms of teaching, but we have pushback.
Yeah, that one doesn't go very far. Assemblywoman, did you want to add?
Sure. As far as the teacher shortage, I usually call these my 4 R's because I've been talking about them now probably since I got into the education committee. And really, residency is #1 on that because why, for the life of me, a teacher that lives in New Hope can't teach in Lambertville and cross a bridge is beyond my realm. But again, to your point, it's leadership. Reciprocity, which you spoke about, that's another one. I think we have to work on that. Retention, very, very important. Teachers should be getting credits and all things to make them to be able to do their jobs better. And lastly, recruitment. We have to find ways, again, to cut the red tape and just to bring more people in. So those are the things. I usually, I've been a PTA president. I was on the Ed Foundation, so I was very lucky. Dr. Dave Michelli was my superintendent, and he used to bring us into all kinds of meetings and things, so we kind of knew what was going on in the schools. So while I'm not an educator, I always felt that I understood what you guys were all going through and the kind of hurdles that you had to jump over. And so when I approached this committee, I tried to look at it more through your eyes, obviously, and because money is such an issue and budgets are such an issue, and quite frankly, being in the minority, I don't have a whole lot to say on the budget. But I try to look at ways that are creative and not to just start by throwing money at an issue, because chances are the issues will still be there. So, thank you.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Terrence Johnson. I'm an assistant principal at Cumberland Regional High School. I've been an assistant principal for 20 years, and probably the main reason that I haven't gone higher up is because I know I love my connection with the kids every single day, right? And we all are in education because we also realize the benefit of providing a service to others. So in terms of the teacher shortage, maybe we need to look at it a little bit differently and plant the seed with our students in terms of them understanding of what that feels like to provide a service to others. So instead of waiting for, the ones that are interested and think they want to go into our profession, maybe with our students, have our students go to the middle schools, have them work with younger students. I have a daughter who is in medical school right now, and initially she's first year and she thought she wanted to go into anesthesiology. We're at Cooper, they have a real big outreach to the people in the city. She's working with students on a regular basis, and now she thinks she wants to go into family practice because she wants to work with families. She wouldn't know what she'd want to do if Cooper didn't plant that seed. I'm a big Survivor fan. There's a contestant right now that he was accepted into med school. And he was about to go into med school, and then he had this one experience where he was a student teacher, decided not to go into med school and became a teacher because that seed was planted at a later stage. So imagine if we could plant the seeds with students and they can go into middle schools and elementary schools and realize the benefit of providing a service to others, and then cultivate them to be future educators, because we know we're not really getting into it for money. So.
Can I ask what stops you from doing that?
I'm sorry?
What stops you from doing that now?
What stops me from doing what?
From allowing a high school student to go into a middle school and to...
Ironically. So I have a senior mentoring program where seniors are, your top seniors in your high school are selected, and they are actually in a class with incoming freshmen. And the seniors' number one job is to help them in their transition into high school, socially, intellectually, and emotionally. And so they are basically assigned those freshmen, and they help them in their transition into high school. And ironically, a lot of my senior mentors pursue a career in either teaching. My son just finished his second master's. He's about to be a school psychologist, about to be hired now. The only reason he went into psychology is because he was a senior mentor. My wife and I told him to go into nursing. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to write movie scripts, and he ain't doing that. So, so ironically, this mentoring program has actually motivated a lot of my seniors to actually go into education by doing, one of those kind of things. So.
I would also like to add a little bit about
And you're going to be the closing comments.
pipeline, right? So we talk about how do we fill the pipeline. I actually work for a career technical education school, CTE school. We understand the need to fill the teacher pipeline. And so we've pushed STEM for so many years that we have so many students going into engineering and science, but we forgot the most valuable part, right? Our educators. Who's going to be there to educate our next generation? So our district has decided to include a CTE program on education. So we will then fill that pipeline, right? So it may or may not work, right? But I think when students go into high school, a lot of them don't even know what they want to do for their future. And they can change, right? I have changed. And I just want to say hello to my professor over there, Seton Hall. Yes, Dr. Coleman. Hello. So again, we have the ability to create these spaces for students. We start now. We can fill in that pipeline. Yes, we need a quick fix currently because we are in a crisis, but that can be something we can work on for the future as well.
All right. If you can literally 30 seconds.
In 30 seconds, hi, I'm John Farinell. I work for the NJPSA. I'm a retired high school principal. I have a son who's a teacher. I'm going to suggest that the root cause for the teacher shortage is twofold. 14 years ago, when the rules changed and the promises were broken that people were in the system, that caused people who became 55 and 25 to leave. Currently, if you want to be a teacher, you have to work 30 years and reach the age of 65, or if you are under 65, you lose 1/4% for every month you are under 65. There are currently no COLAs in New Jersey. If you are 65 years of age, you will not be able to afford to live in New Jersey if you retire, because you will not be able to receive any cost of living adjustment to retain your level or standard of living in New Jersey. That, I suggest, is the reason why teachers are not going into the profession. Not because of programs, not because of incentives, not because there aren't smart, interested people. My piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I want to thank the panel, especially. And I will cede the floor.
Oh, I said you could.
We're not going anywhere, so we'll be
Yeah.
here.
I mean, no, he had his hand up for like a good 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this time. Andy Scanlon, I work in East Brunswick Public School District, go Bears. When we're talking pipeline, I would say how many of us here are encouraged by family members to go into this profession? By show of hands, a large majority of us. If we don't make the teachers, proud to be the current teachers to be proud of their jobs and their careers right now, our pipeline is shut down. Also, we talk about red tape, but yet again, we also have issues where, for computer science, people were grandfathered in and then they weren't, and now you have to take a praxis. So there's lots of things that we need to, I think, fix currently. The return on investment for the lowest return on investment for college majors immediately after school, this was published in the New York Times the other day, we are one of the lowest. And if you look after 7 years, teachers have the absolute lowest return on investment of majors in college. So we need to fix those things.
So I want to thank our panelists for joining us today. I know we could go on with a lot more questions, but I really do appreciate our legislators taking the time to get to know us a little bit better, and also for all of you for sharing your questions and concerns with our legislators.